welcome back.
Welcome back. See, okay, all right. So here's the thing. I never know.
I know.
I never know.
Sometimes I go low, though.
Yeah. So I was waiting.
So that when it is some random idiocy that spills out of my mouth, it's worth it.
Oh, no, I love it. I love it because, people always ask, how scripted, quote unquote, is our podcast. I'm like, guys, listen, it really isn't.
No.
I
don't think good podcasts are scripted.
Think good podcasts are. I think, if you want to know the truth of the silliness of our relationship and how we just have fun, man, this is it. So I was just waiting. I just wanted to see,
the randomness. It will be there in the future. I had one in my head, but I was like, no. It's potty humor.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Brent, here we are, man. Right. We are at the tail end. This is the conclusion.
Part 4 of 7 Things series.
Yeah. It's been really, really cool. We've talked about our 3 million miles of travel.
Yeah, what have we learned from 3 million miles of travel?
Yep. We talked about what we've learned from the mistakes, in ministry.
7 big mistakes.
7 big mistakes. Last week we talked about the 7 books that, because leaders are readers.
Everybody should read.
Yes. And this week, what you got?
7 pearls of wisdom.
7 pearls of wisdom.
One of my favorite questions to ask leaders, just somebody I'm learning from, is if you could give me one piece of advice, what would it be? Or what's the best piece of advice you ever received? Those ideas stick to the side of our brain, and if it is the best piece of, or in that, it may not be the single best, but if it's one of the greatest pieces of wisdom you've ever been given, and it benefited you, what I've found is people are excited to share that.
Yeah.
So that's to me that's a rhythm. That question's always in my back pocket when I meet with somebody.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I'm excited about this because I think, some of, at least for me, these pearls of wisdom that we're going to share are things that I apply to my own life. These are not just something that we want to share with all of our listeners, but these are like the pearls that I live by every day of my life and in my leadership.
And so these are pearls of wisdom that could have come to us in one of 2 ways. Either somebody said it to you, or you learned it from reading or watching, or it was something in church history. Or so I've got a mixture of both. Yeah. So the first one on my list is shout out to the Dr. J. Strack.
Yes, right? Come on, Dr. J.
Founder and president of Student Leadership University.
Yes. We should do. You know what?
Take out your pen, lipstick, and mascara, ladies and gentlemen.
You know what we should have done? A side note.
We need to do
7
I know exactly what you're saying.
J-isms. Yes.
Yeah. 7 J-isms for the ages.
Oh my goodness.
Then we could do like a version where 7 things that only Jay could say and get by with.
Yeah, I think there's like 100
7 things
of
that
those.
if anybody else says, you get sued.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yes.
He would love that series. That'd probably be the greatest moment of his ministry.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about him.
Yes.
All right, so my first one is from Jay.
Okay.
And obviously, I've been around Dr. J a long time. Full disclosure, I'm in his family. I married his daughter. So he both loves and hates me.
Yes,
and but no, he's taught me a lot over the years. But I remember one of the earliest things he said to me, but he also said it to a lot of students at SLU over the years, and it's one of kind of his big statements is feel your muscle, not your pulse.
Yeah.
And as a young leader, I would get so worked up so quick. I mean, I would just go to a 10 so quick. How could that guy talk that way? Or why did that person happen? Or why did that thing happen over there? And why didn't they treat you better? And feel your, no. Feel this, not this. Feel your muscle, not your pulse.
Yeah.
And so, your strength is who you are in your character, what God has called you to, and who you are.
Right.
Not how somebody treats you.
Yeah.
So don't get worked up over that.
Yeah.
And so feel your muscle, not your pulse. Early on in ministry, it's one that he told me, and then he told lots of other people.
Yeah.
But it's stuck with me over the years. What's number 2?
So number 2 for me, I actually heard my pastor. He said this.
Great man.
Yeah, man.
Let's just stop and give honors to amazing man.
Yeah, shout out to Tyrone Barnette, Pastor Tyrone Barnette at Peace Baptist Church.
He's still trying to forgive me.
He is. Yes, because Brent stole me. No, it was God. I did.
It was all God.
It was all God. God. But
he had me preach one time when he wasn't in town. Appreciate that, Pastor Barnette.
Yeah. I was supposed to be the pastor there, but ex-pastor, but I'm here now. But he was my youth pastor growing up, and he was always talking about, just making sure that as a leader that you always want to be around people who have gone places that you aspire to go. And so he would always say, hey, if you're always the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. Yeah. And I'll never forget that, because he's like, hey, you want to, as a leader, again, you want to make sure that you are stretching yourself. And who are those people, right, those leaders, those wise counsels that you can be in the room with, ask questions, learn from, glean from, never ever be so comfortable and so excited about always being the hero, or the wise guy in the room, because then what you'll ultimately do is you'll stifle your own leadership.
Sure.
And so, hey, if you're the always forever, now there's going to be times, Brent, where obviously you and I, we're called to be in certain rooms. We are, quote unquote, the expert in the rooms here. We're teaching, we're leading, we're sharing. But if that's the room you're in all the time, then you'll never grow as a leader. And I'll just never ever forget that. And so it really challenged me to make sure that I was around great leaders, man, that I could learn from, that I aspire to be like, or I can get some of their leadership wisdom. And I think it also speaks to our desires, or we should have the desire to always be humble as leaders and never think that we arrive, and that leadership is a constant evolution. We should always be learning as leaders. So that one's for me. That's our number 2. It's like, if you're always the smartest in the room, you're probably in the wrong room.
Number 3, this one's from church history. This one is a statement that really has helped me over the years to stay present in the moment. That's why I put this in my top 7 list, Pearls of Wisdom, because this one helps me to stay present, and to see the sacredness of every day. Statement by Martin Luther, one of the great reformers, Protestant Reformation. Of course, the Reformation Day is October the 31st. Whenever we get to that Halloween time, it's always, you always think of Martin Luther and the great stand that he took, and really helped to take the church into a direction where there was a Catholic church, and then now there's going to be a Protestant church. Probably the primary doctrine that he held to was the priesthood of all believers. Boy, that flew in the face of the Catholic church. And, it just, so really, really an amazing figure in history. But he said this: there are only 2 days that matter. There are only 2 days in life that matter. This day and that day. And what Luther was referring to is this present moment, and then that moment in which I'm going to stand before God and really give an account of the life that I have lived. So that statement, there are only 2 days in life that matter, this day and that day, have helped me stay grounded and present in this moment. Yeah,
man, I can't remember who it was, so forgive me. But there was, I'll never forget, it was either a quote or a preacher I heard talked about, when we die, on our tombstone, you have our birth date and our death date. Obviously when we go home to be with Jesus, and then there's that dash in between. And what do you do with the dash? You know, that really speaks to kind of the journey of our lives and stuff. And so, man, that's a good one. I love that. Number 4 for us, as you think about culture and how you as a leader impact culture. And I think about what John Maxwell once said. He says, we teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are.
Great quote.
And I've always just loved that quote when I think about, being a leader or influencer in culture, just in your local church or on your team, especially if you're trying to create culture.
Say it again.
We teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are.
That statement, Jeff, for me, and that's to me one of the great John Maxwell isms.
Yes.
But has helped me discern at times what leaders I would follow and not follow. Because what I would, that statement really, and what he wrote around that statement, really helped me go, okay, they're saying some good things. But are there generations of disciples in their life? Is there a pattern of reproducing who they are, and that being a good thing? Because sometimes you reproduce who you are and it's a bad thing.
Right.
So that statement not only is good for self leadership, it's also been a kind of a guide to say, who am I going to follow and not follow?
Yeah. And then also on the other end of that, man, it causes you to have to do a little gut check. Like you can't take people places you've not been yourself, and so if your heart, Brent, is not fully connected to the Lord, and you're not in a place where you're getting wisdom and discernment and guidance from the Holy Spirit, then if you're trying to lead anybody, then that's going to be very difficult for you to do that. And so that John Maxwell, man, quote, this one is a pearl that I love.
Pearl of wisdom. Pearl of wisdom number 4.
Yes, sir.
This one comes from Dr. Bill.
5.
5?
Yeah, that's right. So you've given 2. I've given 2.
Have I given 2?
Yep, you gave it 2.
Let me look at my list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did 2.
Yeah,
You've
2.
given 2. Yeah, I can count.
Yeah.
Number 5. Thank you for fact checking me.
So,
Pearl of wisdom, whatever it is. No, I had the privilege, as you know, and I've told our students this. Dr. J helped facilitate the opportunity for me to meet Dr. Bill Bright before he went to heaven. Dr. Bright, he and Miss Barnette, co-founders and led Campus Crusade for Christ for many, many years.
Yeah.
And they're now world headquarters are based out of here in Lake Nona, Florida. But Dr. Bright, and he said this to me a few months before he passed away. I had the chance to sit in his living room, and I asked him a question that we began this podcast with, and that is, hey, if you could just tell me one thing, what would it be? And here's what he said to me, and he said, well, a lot of people have said it. I've been saying it a long time, and I don't know who it's original with, but he gave that disclaimer. But he said this. He said, "Let your view of God determine everything about you." And then he just paused and he looked at me. He said, "So Brent, you better have a pretty healthy view of God."
Yeah. Wow.
He said, "Let your view of God determine everything about you. So you better be cultivating a healthy view of God."
Yeah.
And it really is a one of those penetrating statements. Like there's nothing in my life, Jeff, and your life, or anybody's life, that can be separated from our view of God. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's good, man.
And so, let your view of God determine everything about you. Therefore, you better have a pretty healthy view of God.
That's so good, man. That's good.
My question I ask myself a lot of times in light of that pearl of wisdom is my view of God healthier, bigger, deeper, wider today than it was yesterday?
That's good, man.
And if it's not,
that's good.
Then I don't. Then I'm not cultivating a healthy view. We can't live. We can't ride the coattails of yesterday's faithfulness and expect to prosper.
Yeah.
Let me say that again.
That's good.
You and I cannot ride the coattails of yesterday's faithfulness and expect to prosper.
Yeah.
No, we have to have a ever-growing, healthy, cultivating that healthy view of God. So that one's one of those penetrating statements for me.
Yeah.
I can count.
Yeah.
Number 6.
Number 6. Oh man, yeah, he's gonna mess me for that one. So, hey, this one is more of something that I, would tell my children, growing up, but also I try to apply my life because, to be very honest, Brent, I didn't always get this particular pearl right as a teenager myself, and it's something that is probably, people have said it in a variety of different ways when it comes to friendships and who you have in your life, but your circle today determines your destiny tomorrow. And I would always talk to my boys about being careful, who they have in their space. That circle of friends that they have today will have significant impact on where they move, good or bad, tomorrow, and that it will either they'll have either 2 types of friends in their lives: friends that are assets or some that are liabilities. I
thought you were gonna go another way with that word.
Assets.
Say for the little ears. I'm sorry. I'll be
assets.
I'm sorry.
Bring value. Those who
Brian knows what I'm saying.
Brian is over there dying. That is so funny. Oh man, let's make sure we put that. Look in our show notes. It's assets. There's and liabilities. But who are those people? Make sure you have people in your life that are that are bringing value. There's value there. They are. It's like iron sharpening iron, versus those who take away. Those who are going to take you outside of your destiny. And I think as we've talked, you and I in particular, about just the importance of godly friendships and healthy relationships. I think that's just so important in our lives that we not just as teenagers but even as adults, that we make sure that we are very intentional about the circle that we have around us, because man, the wrong circle will definitely take you down the wrong path. And Jesus talks about this at the end of the Sermon on the Mount when he talks about the wide gate and the narrow gate. Because there's two paths, Brent. One path is a path that that wide gate. Many travel down it. It looks very popular. It looks like that's the pathway to go. But Jesus says, man, that pathway leads to destruction. But then there's that narrow gate, man. It's not heavily populated. It calls for a little bit of intentionality, but that's the pathway it's going to lead to eternal life. And so you got to make some decisions in your life. Who are those people that are going to bring value? I want to keep. Who are those people going to take away? I need to remove out of my life. So,
well, the Proverbs teaches the wise walk with the wise and the foolish with the foolish.
Absolutely, So,
well, my last one, number 7 is. Did I get that right? Number 7 is. Years ago, and I doubt this man is still alive because he was an elderly man and statesman at that point. But probably maybe 18, 20 years ago, we were in London, SOU 301, and a very esteemed veteran of the British military was speaking to us. He'd been a veteran and had been out of the armed forces for many, many years, and his name was Sir Michael Hobbs, and he recalled to us the story of some German prisoners during World War II. Not that he oversaw personally, but that men that he had served with oversaw, and how they were treated with respect and dignity, even though they were considered the enemy. So that when the war was over and those prisoners were released, they gave a good report of their captor. And so he said to me, said to us, it was a principle that he had tried to live by ever since that event happened. And here's what he said, and I wrote it down exactly this way in my journal sitting in the back of the room 18 years ago in London. He said, make sure your enemies can tell your story.
Wow.
Live in such a way.
Oh, that's great, man.
That your enemies can tell your story.
That's powerful, dude.
And I want to. Boy, isn't that what Jesus is getting at in Matthew 5:43 through 48, where we're supposed to love our enemy, and pray for those who persecute you and spitefully use you. But there's this, and what happens is if you do all this, you'll be like your Father in heaven. And a lot of times the Bible translates that word perfect. You'll be perfect like your Father in heaven. It's not a moral perfection that Jesus was talking about. The word he uses, he's talking about a completeness. You're complete when your enemies know your love.
That's powerful.
And that's so I've always tried to keep that in the back of my mind. That's to live in such a way that even your enemies could tell your story.
Man, that is. Wow, that's good, man. I mean, I don't really have much to add to that. That's a good one.
I mean, Sir Michael Hobbs,
Sir Michael Hobbs. I mean, it really speaks to the importance of our witness. I'll say that.
There you go.
As a man managing our witness. So that's strong, man. Good stuff.
Part 4. This was fun, Jeff.
Yeah, it was, man. And listen, hey, guess what? We are going into... we're going to talk about it later, but Thanksgiving and Christmas season. Come on, man.
I'm about to get in the spirit.
Oh, my goodness. Now, this is our favorite time of the year.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Lots of shenanigans ahead, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of shenanigans ahead.
Yes.
Halloween candy is good, but it's like previews of coming attractions.
Yes,
It's about to get really good.
Oh, it is.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thanks for listening. You can follow us at SOU Lead, you can follow my friend
at I am Jeff Wallace.
You can follow myself at Brent A. Crow. Until we meet again, wander well and shine like stars.
See ya.